Right. Let's dive into a piece of law that completely changed the game for British democracy, the 1928 Equal Franchise Act. Now, if you're doing citizenship studies, you'll know this is a huge deal. It's all about one of the most fundamental rights we have, the right to vote, or what's also called the franchise. So let's get right into it.
But before we dig into the law itself, let's just pause and think about a really big question. What does fairness in a democracy actually look like? When we talk about voting, what does true equality at the ballot box really mean? It's a question that gets right to the heart of the problem the 1928 Act was designed to solve.
And this is the key thing, before 1928, the system was anything but equal. Your right to vote literally depended on who you were. It created this system that was just fundamentally unbalanced and, honestly, it was crying out for a massive change.
And here's the core of the problem. It was basically a two-tiered system for democracy. For men, the rules for getting the vote were pretty straightforward. But for women, well, it was a completely different story. It was all tangled up in these complex, messy rules about your age and whether you owned property. Your gender literally determined how hard it was for you to have your say.
So how did they fix this mess? Well, the answer was the Representation of the People Equal Franchise Act of 1928. This is a truly landmark piece of legislation, not because it's super long or complicated, but because it had one incredibly clear and really powerful goal.
The act itself says its purpose was to assimilate the franchises for men and women. Now, that word assimilate, it sounds a bit formal, right? But all it really means in this context is to make things the same, to make them resemble each other. The goal wasn't to invent a whole new system, but to just take the two unequal ones and merge them into a single, fair standard for everybody.
So the main takeaway is just this. The entire point of this law was to erase those legal differences. It was built to get rid of the two tiers and just create one equal standard for every single voter in the country. A beautifully simple idea, but absolutely revolutionary.
So how did Parliament actually pull it off? How do you change the very fabric of democracy with just a few carefully chosen words? Well, let's take a look at the exact wording of the Act itself.
And this is where it gets really powerful. Check out the specific language used here. Notice it says he or she. Now that might not seem like a big deal to us today, but back then, wow, that was huge. For the first time in this context, the law is explicitly putting men and women on the exact same legal footing, right from the first sentence. It's no longer about a man's right, but a person's right.
And then there's this other key phrase, full age. This simple term, this was the great equalizer. It completely swept away all those previous complicated and discriminatory rules about different ages for men and women, replacing them with one single, clear standard for everyone. A total game changer.
And here they are, the new simplified rules of the game. The same rules for everyone. You had to be of full age, and then you just had to meet one of the residency or business criteria. And that's it. The same 4 clear conditions applied in the exact same way to every single potential voter, no matter their gender.
And get this, you can see just how thorough this act was. This idea of equality wasn't just for the big general elections when you choose your MP. Oh no, the act made it crystal clear that it also applied to the local government franchise, making sure there was fairness when you voted for your local councils too.
So you change a few words in a law. What's the big deal? What was the actual real-world impact of all this? Well, it was nothing short of a democratic revolution. The entire voting population of the United Kingdom was completely reshaped almost overnight. And the end result was simple. It was this: real equality at the ballot box. For the very first time in British history, the country had a genuinely democratic electorate, one that actually represented all of its adult citizens.
So, okay, that's the history. But why does a law that's nearly 100 years old still matter so much? This is where it all connects directly to you and your citizenship studies, and why getting your head around this act is so important today. Here's why it's a big deal for you. The ideas that were established by the Equal Franchise Act are a fundamental part of the national curriculum, the stuff you have to learn. So understanding this act isn't just about looking at some dusty old history. It's a required part of being an informed citizen right now.
Just look at one of the main goals of your course. It says you need to understand how citizens participate actively in democracy. Think about that for a second. You simply can't grasp what it means to participate today without first knowing the story of how the right for everyone to participate was finally won. And the curriculum itself calls the right to vote one of our precious liberties. I love that phrase. It's not just a rule in a book, it's a treasure, something valuable.
And the 1928 Act was a massive landmark moment in securing that specific precious liberty for every single adult citizen.
So we'll end with a question for you to really think about. Knowing the history, knowing how this right was fought for and finally secured in law, what does that mean for us now? What is our responsibility to use that precious right today? It's a big question, and it's all yours to answer.